Hey friends, Jeff here with a new episode of Conversations Life Science Leaders Aren't Having. I want to take you back 20 years, maybe even more than that, 25 years. And I was living in Orlando, Florida, going to the University of Central Florida. And my friends and I would go to this part of Orlando near the airport where we could camp and hang out. And it was largely swampland. It was nothing. Fast forward to today, and now Lake Nona in this community of 17 square miles exists. And it is an absolutely amazing place. And our guest today, Gloria Caulfield, is the vice president at Tavistock Development Company, is the founder of the Lake Nona Impact Forum that happens every year. And she has come to the show just to tell the story, her story, but also the story of Lake Nona and what's happening there. It is really an amazing community. Not only the fact that it exists as it does today, but the culture and the values that drive Lake Nona and where it's going in being a community of the future. Who Gloria is to me is connection and convening. She has this infectiousness about her and her desire to connect and bring together people to create diversity of thought, innovation, and a forward-looking movement in the world. I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation with Gloria Caulfield. Gloria Caulfield, thank you so much for being here today. I loved getting to know you and excited for our episode. So welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jeff. Great to be here.
I just did a brief introduction of who you are to me. Would love for you to start us off today and just share with the audience what you're up to in the world these days.
Well, so what I'm up to in the world is I have the great fun and joy of being able to work at Lake Nona. And the headline is that this is all about creating the ideal place to inspire human potential. So when I get out of bed every day and I ask myself, what is my North Star? That is absolutely it. To create the ideal place to inspire human potential. We do that through a multitude of ways, but essentially we're looking at a large-scale community based in Central Florida, Lake Nona, 10 minutes from one of the busiest airports in the country. And we are growing and energizing one of the most innovative health and life sciences clusters in the country. But more broadly than that, we're looking at an entire community, 17 square miles, 14,000 acres, and we're looking at the lived experience through the lens of health and well-being and technology and innovation, and reimagining what that lived experience looks like. And obviously, we're well on our way after about 12 to 15 years of, a lot of dynamic activity.
If you think back to those early days when you were having those conversations about Tavistock, about Lake Nona, 15 years ago, it was by and large still marshy land. I mean, in many ways. As I shared, I spent 12 years in Orlando, and we used to go out that way, and there was nothing there. So if you think about those early conversations about the opportunity with Tavistock and Lake Nona, what was it then that just caught your attention, said, I have to be a part of that?
Yeah, well, I think that, I've been with Lake Nona for the last 12 years. So a lot of those early conversations preceded me, but I was a community member working for one of the largest healthcare systems in the country, watching and admiring the vision that was starting to unfold here. So I think for me, what was attractive is being able to imagine and getting inspired about what is the future of health? What is the future of medicine? And this geography just represents a place where you could take down all of your preconceived notions and create something new and different. So I think that's the piece that's not just attractive to me or what attracted me to being a part of this, but I see that play out with the people that we bring here, the people that we expose, the businesses that have the opportunity to do business here or maybe even visualize their business here. That's the biggest thing is what is the future? And this really represents then and now the future.
Mm, mm. I'd love to get to know your heart even a little bit more. In there's this, we go to conferences, we go to events, and we get asked hundreds of times, "What do you do?" Or it's on our lanyard. I would love to change the narrative a little bit and just ask you, what do you love?
On a personal level, what I love, number one, I'm a family person. So the family is the number one thing that keeps me grounded. And it's also the thing that keeps me soothed during stressful times. It's what creates the most fun in my life. And I'm a relationship person at heart. So it starts with family, but I also have lifelong friends. And there's nothing better to have that as your foundation for everything that you do. People, relationships, and really that having a close tribe that is so deeply meaningful when everything else around you can seem so dynamic and vibrant and sometimes chaotic, but that is the foundation for me. And then I would say in the second tier is I am just a big admirer of nature. And so being in nature, getting to exercise and be active and have movement in nature, there is nothing more grounding than being able to look and observe and be part of something that's so much bigger than you. And natural beauty is something that is deeply meaningful for me.
Is there a recent experience or trip or place that just blew you away?
Yeah, well, I think I mentioned to you that I had I have a background in going to school at the University of Arizona. And so last April, I did a wonderful retreat with a friend in Sedona. And a year prior, she had been going through breast cancer treatment. And I helped her through some of that, in terms of being a caretaker. And we had been to Sedona together many years prior. She never forgot about how much she loved it and wanted to go back. And I said, I got an idea. I said, let's get through this cancer. And when you're in remission, because I know you will be, and you'll be cancer-free, let's go back. And that's exactly what we did in April. And if you've ever spent time in Sedona, you know that it's a mystical place. It's a place that's very inspiring, and it really it can impact you on a soul level. So that's a recent example this year of something that I think resonates with something that's deeply meaningful for me.
Thank you so much. When you were reflecting on the value of community and a tribe, I've been thinking a lot about what the world is these days, and it's especially in the Western world. We're hyper individualistic, hyper individualistic. And it just strikes me your core value around community and a tribe and family really mirrors what you're creating in Lake Nona is community. There's always going to be that individualistic aspect to health and wellness and transformation. But what I sense is there's a embracing and a movement towards community of a collectiveness. And I'm wondering, is that a value in the work in Lake Nona and everything that's happening there of this collectiveness?
Yeah, I think it's a brilliant observation, Jeff. I mean, if you kind of take what we just talked about and then you translate it to something where we're growing and scaling a community. We're growing and scaling a business community, a residential community. There's a visitor community that comes in. Building community is essential. I mean, if you're kind of tuned in to what the Surgeon General's been saying about the epidemic of loneliness, and how that plays into social determinants of health. If you even go back to things like the blue zones, where they say, okay, some of the highest concentration of centenarians, one of the biggest factors is community and people feeling like they have an integral part of that tribe. And so I do think that Lake Nona as a whole does a brilliant job in establishing community. We're in Florida. We have a lot of new people, businesses that come, preeminent leaders that are recruited to come here and work, residents that come from across the country and other parts of Florida to live here. And we put a lot of emphasis on building community by all different types of community events, things that would resonate with all different types of people, depending on what your interest. If you're interested in running, there's going to be events for you. If you're interested in art, in wine tasting, there'll be some events for you. It's really an endless amount or a calendar, almost nearly 1,000 events a year. And that's important because as people become acquainted with the community, it's important to be able to build authentic connection and to build relationships that makes you feel like you belong to something. And I think that's one of the many things that resonates with people that live and work in Lake Nona.
And how are you observing a breakthrough to that people see the value of tribe, of community, of connection? Because again, we've evolved as a Western culture to be that hyper individualistic. What have you observed in the efforts in the development of the community to nudge people? I think that's a word that you see a lot in the Blue Zone work, of nudging people in this direction to embrace these ideals that you're embodying in Lake Nona.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a certain amount of intentionality. I don't think this can just happen all by itself, so I think that, the vision that our leaders at Lake Nona have had is, how do we build a culture of collaboration and innovation? What do we need to do to help energize that and to catalyze that? And so one example is that we have a series of leadership councils that we have organized. So what does that mean? It means that on a quarterly basis, the CEOs of a lot of our big anchor institutions, Nemours, the VA, the College of Medicine, HCA, teaching hospital, et cetera, they all come together in meetings. We also have similar meetings with our research council, with our communications council, with HR. And simply what that means, we come together and ask each other the question, how can we help each other? How can we support each other? Because to your point, there are individualized goals. When you're running massive organizations like a 1.2 million square foot VA is the busiest VA in the country, you have your individual goals. When you're running an incredible high-tech children's hospital like Nemours, there's so many specific objectives that you have to meet. But the beauty is that when we have these meetings, we can find ways to support each other because we are talking and we are communicating, and we have our own tribes at these different disciplines, and that really creates some very strong and unique opportunities just by asking each other the question and having these intentional strategic discussions around how can we help each other? What are you doing that I don't know about? How can I support you? And, where there are just obvious areas of alignment. That's a very intentional approach to how we work in Lake Nona.
And it brings me back to one of the first things you said is this North Star of creating the ideal space to optimize or maximize human potential. Mm-hmm. My sense is that these groups of leaders who are having these conversations, they all have their own priorities, their own agendas in their lane, so to speak. Yeah. But they're united in this North Star. Would you say that my sense is that true, that this North Star of creating a space that maximizes or optimizes human potential, is that a shared North Star in this group of leaders?
No doubt. I think that we have some remarkable leaders. They could go anywhere with their careers. They are A players, A+ players, top in their fields. And what's attracted them here is this opportunity. I think the dean of the medical school is a great example. Dr. Deborah German, founding dean of the University of Central Florida College of Medicine, Harvard trained, has a background as a health hospital CEO, has really impressive academic experience before coming here. And what she saw was the opportunity to create the medical school of the future. And she said, I have a chance to come here and create something, the very unique opportunity, in working with our leadership at Lake Nona and now cross-pollinating. And another great example is when the VA decided they were site selecting, many years ago, determining where they wanted to go, where they wanted to have the first VA hospital in the region. We were the largest metro area without a VA hospital. And what became integral to their decision, and I'm sure there's many, many components of that decision-making process, is being close to a medical school. Nearly 70% of physicians in the U.S. have some training and education at VA hospital. So that adjacency, the opportunity to cross-pollinate and literally be the next door neighbor to the medical school was really important to them. So there's so many different layers to this discussion, and there's so many things that have become, that were originally attractive to these key anchors to being here, but there's nothing like having the opportunity to pioneer and do new things, and to do it with leaders that are like-minded, that, all have similar interests in creating this health and life sciences cluster of the future.
How deep does this because I love again, I'm going to keep using this term North Star of creating space or spaces that optimize human potential. How deep does that go in terms of, just take your team, for example, whether it be the Lake Nona Impact Forum or Tavistock? How is that operationalized deep into your organization so that that frontline person, that event organizer that's on your team, that is part of their North Star? How is that operationalized deep into an organization?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the beauties of this project and just, the Lake Nona leadership style in general is that it is a very entrepreneurial endeavor. You sense that, not a high degree of bureaucracy, not, a high degree of, barriers to creativity. And so I think it's just, as a leader personally, allowing ourselves to really optimize our creativity in this environment. So, and sometimes that can be, challenging, because it's easy to be in environments sometimes where you just do the same thing all the time. You know what to expect, you know what you're going to do every day, et cetera. Well, when you're creating something of this magnitude with this audacious vision, it allows you to take those blinders off. It allows you to remove those boundaries and those barriers around you and truly be inspired and creative. And that's something that I try to impart on the people that I work with. Like, let's be fearless. Let's not be reckless, but let's be fearless. And let's think about, when we're, as an example, you brought up Impact Forum, every year, let's reset ourselves. Let's come up with new ideas and new topics and new ways to energize. So giving permission for people to really bring their best thinking to the table. I think that's what makes an organization like Lake Nona, Tavistock Development Company, and ultimately this entire project so invigorating.
Tell us more about Lake Nona Impact Forum and the role that it plays in this larger tapestry of what's being created, because it doesn't stand alone. It's like you didn't come up, I don't imagine, with an idea or let's do an impact forum. My sense is that this is really part of the tapestry of what you're creating collectively with other leaders, of what you're creating at Lake Nona. Tell us more about and how that fits into this tapestry.
Yeah. So I think that how it fits into the tapestry is, go back, again, I've been with Lake Nona and Tavistock since 2011. And what struck me when I first, got into the organization is there was a massive amount of development going on. A lot of these big anchors were not open yet. There were a couple, but most were under construction, most were under development. And it was a very dynamic time for the project. So there was, along with some of my colleagues, we looked around and we said, okay, what really makes an innovation cluster thrive is the collection of great brains, great intellect, incredible brain trust, vision for the future. And that was really sort of the seeds that were planted for Impact Forum. And the thought process is that if we could invite some of the best health innovators in the country and over time in the world to convene here annually and talk about the most important and the most pressing subjects, what could we learn from that? How could our project benefit from that? And ultimately that was sort of the building blocks for the Lake Nona Impact Forum. So big audacious vision. We rolled out the first one in 2012, and we are currently sitting here planning the Impact Forum for 2024. So the culture of the event and the uniqueness of the event has resonated. And ultimately, we have something that's enduring that has really created, quote unquote, an impact. So that was really the beginnings of it.
Yeah, it feels like it's all connected to the North Star that we've been referring back to. This is contributing by bringing these leaders and these innovators and these thinkers together. It's contributing to the mission, to the North Star. Like, okay, how do we do this better? How do we align to our North Star? Well, 2012, let's have this audacious idea of doing the Lake Nona Impact Forum. So I hear that again and again as I'm listening to you, Gloria.
And one thing I might add to that, which kind of bridges back to the statement we just had, is that to be able to come into a development company and have the entrepreneurial spirit and backing to do something like this, that in and of itself is unique. So going back to what is this place really like, to be able to say, yes, let's move forward and organize something that could put a national spotlight on health innovation in this geography. So that's a really great, example of the culture of Lake Nona. And each and every one of our anchors signed on in one way or another to be of support, either as a partner for the event, or helping to recruit speakers, or opening up the doors of their buildings to their venues, or hosting some portion of the event. It was definitely a unified front, with every key anchor involved. So, and it continues to be.
I'm going to bring the name of the show to the center, and I'd love your reaction to the title, Conversations Life Science Leaders Aren't Having. And you could broaden that even to healthcare. But what are those conversations that leaders in this space aren't having, or not having enough, that you would like to invite them into?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I think one of the areas that we don't talk about enough, and maybe we talk about it, but we don't action behind it enough, is this whole area of transformation from sick care to well care. That is a very, very an area that's very interesting to me, as well as to a lot of our anchors here in Lake Nona. So as we know that, we have healthcare systems that have been set up for acute healthcare delivery, vitally important work. But there's an overwhelming amount of disease that is created by lifestyle choices and just lifestyle in general. And so I think this movement to be able to support patients, to support consumers of health in a different way, so that, we can start to nudge and educate and support healthy behaviors that optimize health, and ultimately at scale have the potential to just lower a lot of costs in healthcare. So that's one area that we talk about wellness, but having the right models around it to really have a meaningful shift, I think it's a really important area for us to continue to focus on.
Mm. And what is because I sense the conversation is different in Lake Nona around this shift in the paradigm from sick care to well care and well-being focus. What is the conversations that are happening that are an example of that shift?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it starts with the community itself. So if you look at like Lake Nona, the whole community, 17 square miles, 14,000 acres. We're talking about a very, very large place, in terms of the size. But it really starts with intentionality of, how the community is designed and how it's activated. So as an example, from the beginning, there was this vision of this has to be a walkable, cyclable, lots of mobility options, and make that easy for people. So 44 miles plus of trails just programmed in from the very beginning. That's number one. I think number two is even in building design. If you look at a lot of the buildings, large buildings that have been designed, they've been done through the lens of choice architecture, which simply means how do we encourage mobility and movement in a building without people even thinking about it? It's harder to find the elevators. It's easier to see big welcoming staircases. And, more often than not, people will pick those staircases because it's right there in their visual field when they walk into a building. The elevators are available, but it's not quite as intuitive. And so those are things. We early on looked at, and one of the arguably the most unhealthy habit that you can have is tobacco use. And so I partnered with the American Lung Association, and we have a chance to have a smoke-free community. And that's now become pervasive, with our various, recreational areas, our parking garages, the patios of our restaurants, even our multifamily. So, not just giving the opportunity to have more of a clean air, smoke-free community. So those are some foundational things that you can just think about in everyday life that automatically make a difference to influence healthy behaviors. And then to go one step deeper in the buildings that themselves, there's been a lot of intentionality with our development team to optimize health in the built environment. So I think most people would say, yeah, I'm living in a healthy home, or I have a healthy building, but there's ways to make those even healthier. As human beings, 92% of our time is spent indoors in modern culture. 92% of our time, with some people, it may be even higher than that. So it is imperative to have buildings that optimize health, inside. And so we have done that, partnering with companies like View that have wellness glass on the buildings, looking at our own office at Tavistock Development Company, where we are certified through the International Well Building Institute for a healthy office. There's many, many dimensions to what's part of that standard. But those are just a handful of things that we've done to really sort of surround us with options for health and well-being that are non-intrusive. They're just part of everyday life.
Yeah. Have you you referred to blue zones before. Is it part of the culture of measuring impact on the community of all the things that you're talking about in terms of longevity and health? Is that a metric that you're looking at?
Well, so we have a project in Lake Nona called the Lake Nona Life Project. And that is really a framework. We're working with the University of Central Florida, the chair of population health of the College of Medicine, as our principal investigator. And that is sort of our foundation that we're laying to be able to understand the health of the population that lives in Lake Nona. So it's very much a voluntary research project, and it's an epidemiological research project for those that follow that. And it's an opportunity for us to understand. There's 16 to 17 different parts of this survey that our community can participate in. And it starts to give us a good view of the overall health of the community. Over time, we can look at pairing that self-reported information with some objective data through our Lake Nona Performance Club, which, we're at the beginning stages, but it's something that's on our radar because we realize that we have this unique situation and it does provide interesting research opportunities.
Gloria, as you look back, I'll set this question up with the quote. Author John Ruskin said that the highest reward for a person's toil is not what they get, but who they become. So if you look back, especially over the time that you spent in Lake Nona, who have you become?
Who have I become? Well, I think the way I would respond to that is a convener. I think that's one of my superpowers, if you will, but it's also indicative of just the culture here, in terms of we are conveners, and convening is important because it allows for bringing together different perspectives, diverse backgrounds, different cultures, a different view in the world. One of the most impactful books, I think, that shaped my way of thinking and my way of doing business is a book called The Medici Effect, which was written by Franz Johansson. And I read that book, I would say, probably 13 or 14 years ago. And it changed forever how I thought about innovation. And Franz, in his book, simply said that if you're sitting with all the same people all the time that come from the same background, that came from similar households, and specific points of view, then it's really challenging to innovate in that environment. But if you set a table and you allow for people from different parts of the world or different parts of the country that have different skills, they don't all come with the exact same skill set. And you create an environment where people have freedom to think and contribute and problem solve together. That's where some of the biggest breakthroughs come in, because we're not coming with a set mindset. And I think that in terms of what I do and what I've become, I've tried to become an extension of what Franz has proposed in The Medici Effect all those years ago. So that's been my personal North Star in business. That's what I seek out, when we're looking at partnerships and we're looking at, who can really help make an impact here. It's diversity of thought, diversity of perspective, and skill set and contribution. It's so imperative to create something special.
Mm. And I really just get that that's who you are, and that's what has been created at Lake Nona. And my sense is in all the places where you find yourself in life and in the world, that's what you create. So I really honor that and acknowledge what that experience I'm having of you, Gloria.
Thank you, Jeff.
We've touched on so many things, and I'd love, before we wrap, to give you an opportunity to highlight anything that's going on, whether it be in the broader Lake Nona, Tavistock, the Impact Forum that's being planned right now for February of next year. Anything you'd like to highlight for the audience?
Yeah, well, I think one important thing to highlight is that at Lake Nona, we're open to innovation, right? We are open to new ideas, new collaborators, new businesses that are attracted to an ecosystem like this. And I think that, we're making some really interesting progress going back to the future of health and the future of medicine, and what we can do here to really differentiate this health and life sciences cluster from others out there. And we are really aggregating some great thought leadership and businesses that are squarely focused on the future of health. So one example is Fountain Life. Fountain Life is a unique company, is founded by Tony Robbins and Peter Diamandis and Bob Hariri, Bill Kapp. And they're really focused on exactly what I said, precision wellness. How can we keep people well? How can we apply resources to equip people to be the CEO of their own health, giving them the right data, giving them the right roadmap, and so on and so forth. So this is a place, again, 10 minutes, excuse me, door to door to the airport, with a leading edge medical school of the future. University of Florida has a great pharmacy school here doing great research. HCA has their designated center of innovation, one of two in the entire country. The VA also is a designated center for innovation, and you have one of the top children's hospitals. So everybody here is not just doing ordinary things. We're all focused on, the innovation in health and healthcare for the future. So that's what gets me energized, is to look at this collection of organizations that are really squarely focused on the same thing. And so that's one thing. Regarding the Impact Forum, we are in deep planning right now for 2024, and every year we look at what are the topics that are most timely and most interesting. We had the opportunity to unveil with Microsoft in March of this year Chat GPT-4 a week or so before it became publicly available to anybody else broadly. So when we look at our next iteration of the Impact Forum, we're going to deepen our discussions around AI. We're going to deepen our conversations around quantum computing, but we're 40 minutes to the Space Coast. So we're going to have some very interesting conversations with some eminent people on space, research that's happening in the International Space Station, commercial space travel. How does that impact the future of humans on Earth? We'll be also looking at food in a substantial way in all dimensions of food, everything from food scarcity to food as medicine and, food policy and everything in between. But this whole area of health span in longevity medicine is of high interest, because I think we're on the tipping point of so many breakthroughs. And so those are just a few appetizers in terms of, the territory that we're going to cover. And of course, more. We're really energized about how it's coming together.
Very exciting. If folks want to know more about what you're up to, what's happening at Lake Nona, where can we send them?
Yeah, so I think the Lake Nona Impact Forum website would be one thing. The Lake Nona website would be another. Tavistock Development Company would be another great resource.
Great. Well, we'll put all those links in the show notes. Gloria, this has been such a fun conversation. I just really appreciate you bringing all of you to the show today.
Thank you, Jeff. And you're a great, great host. So it's been a lot of fun talking to you.
Awesome. Well, take good care.
Thank you.